Vasudeva, for whom he had a natural love since his birth, is everything. And thus he fixed his mind firmly upon him, renouncing all modes of Vedic karma kandya activities. This perfectional stage is attained by jnani after many, many births. The jnanis, or the empiric philosophers endeavoring for liberation, are thousands of times better than the fruitive workers, and out of hundreds of thousands of such jnanis, one is liberated factually. And out of hundreds of thousands of such liberated persons, even one person is rarely found who can firmly fix his mind unto the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. As declared by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:19, as declared by the Lord in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. So that's the verse. Bhavanam Jambanam Ante Gyanavanman Prapadyante. Maharaj Parikshit is specially qualified with the word Mahamanaha, which puts him on an equal level with the Mahatmas described in the Bhagavad Gita. In the later age also there have been many Mahatmas of this type, and they also gave up all karmakandya conceptions of life, solely and wholly depending on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, who is Lord Krishna himself, taught us in his Shikshastikam verse 8, Lord Krishna, who is the lover of many devotees, may embrace this fully surrendered maidservant, or may trample me with his feet, or he may render me broken-hearted by not being present before me for a long duration of time, but still he is nothing less than the absolute Lord of my heart. Srila Rupa Goswami spoke thus, O Lord of the poor, do what you like with me, give me either mercy or punishment, but in this world I have none to look to except your lordship. The Chataka bird always prays for the cloud, regardless of whether it showers rain or throws a thunderbolt. Srila Madhavendra Puri, the Grand Spiritual Master of Lord Chaitanya, took leave of all karmakandya obligations in the following words. O my evening prayer, all good unto you. O my morning bath, I bid you goodbye. O demigods and forefathers, please excuse me. I am unable to perform any more offerings for your pleasure. Now I have decided to free myself from all reactions to sins simply by remembering anywhere and everywhere the great descendant of Yadu and the great enemy of Kamsa, Lord Krishna. I think that this is sufficient for me, so what is the use of further endeavors? Srila Madhavendra Puri said further, let the sharp moralist accuse me of being illusioned, I do not mind. Experts in Vedic activities may slander me as being misled. Friends and relatives may call me frustrated. My brothers may call me a fool. The wealthy Mammonites may point me out as mad, and the learned philosophers may assert that I am much too proud. Still my mind does not budge an inch from the determination to serve the lotus feet of Govinda, though I be unable to do it. Shri Madhavendra Puri ki jai. And also Prahlad Maharaj said, religion, economic development and sense gratification are celebrated as three means of attaining the path of salvation. Of these, Iksha Trayi especially, i.e. knowledge of the self, knowledge of fruitive acts and logic, and also politics and economics, are different means of livelihood. All these are different subjects of Vedic education, and therefore I consider them temporary engagements. On the other hand, surrendering unto the Supreme Lord Vishnu is a factual gain in life, and I consider it the ultimate truth. Srimad Bhagavatam 7.6.26, Prahlad Maharaj. The whole matter is concluded in the Bhagavad Gita 2.41 as Vyavasayatmika Buddhi, or the absolute path of perfection. Sri Baladeva Vidyabhushana, a great Vaishnava scholar, defines this as Bhagavad Archana Rupaika Nishkama Karma Vir Vishuddha Chittaha. Accepting transcendental loving service to the Lord as the prime duty, free from fruitive reaction. So Maharaj Parikshit was perfectly right when he firmly accepted the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, renouncing all karmakandya conceptions of life. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Oma Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Jena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Itinamine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. So Krishna Anubhava, wrapped in thought of Krishna, Shravane, hearing, Shradadana, full of faith. So this is how Sudha Goswami is describing the mood and the devotional situation of Parikshit Maharaj, that he was wrapped in thought of Krishna, hearing from Shukadev Goswami, and he was Shradadana, full of faith. He had complete faith in the narrations that he was hearing. So this is the result of hearing Krishna consciousness from the right source. When we hear from the right source, it awakens this Krishna Anubhava, this feeling where the mind becomes wrapped as R-A-P-T, not wrapped as in wrapping something, but wrapped as in completely enamored, completely absorbed in that thought of Krishna when we hear from the right source. The natural result of hearing from the right source of Krishna consciousness. Then Vasudevi Bhagavati Atma Bhavam Dridam Gata. This is from this verse. This is from verse 4. This is the last two lines of verse 4 here. So Vasudevi unto Lord Krishna Bhagavati Atma Bhavam, attraction of love, Dridam, very firmly fixed and achieved. So by the end, when Parikshit Maharaj left his body, he had achieved this very exalted state of Krishna consciousness being described here, and he was able to very easily give up all his engagements. So he was a king, so naturally he was engaged to some degree in these sort of karma kandya things to keep the society going. He had to do various sacrifices and have economic development in the kingdom so that people could live healthily, have their needs fulfilled. But at the end of life he was able to give up all of these things. So these four goals of the Vedas, Dharma, Artha, Kama and Moksha, this is what people in general are very much absorbed in this process. Anyone who's progressive in the world will see that they perform some kind of regulated activity, some kind of religion, whether it's even just in a mundane sense, getting up early for work, or doing some process or something. Everybody is doing some kind of a dharma, some kind of occupation, and that can be all different varieties according to the different modes of nature that they're in. And the goal of that, the people are working very hard to get some artha, to get some economic development. And why do they want economic development? Why do they want to be able to buy things and create things and make cities and make all of these skyscrapers and make all of the machines and the cars to drive here and there and the planes? Why do they want all that? Kama, sense gratification, to be able to enjoy material sense gratification, so-called enjoyment, the material enjoyment. So this process is going on everywhere. It's going on everywhere. People in general are very attached to those. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is telling us that the real purpose of life is to actually to renounce all of these activities, to give up these activities in a material sense, and to awaken, develop love for God, love for Krishna. So people are thinking, generally speaking, even in terms of their religion, we'll work hard, we'll go to church, and then we'll enjoy life. But in the vast majority of cases, the real purpose is actually sense gratification. It's not really a spiritual purpose. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, it actually rejects this purpose right in the beginning. And it lays out in the very second verse, among all of these 18,000 verses, the second verse itself says, Dharma projita ketavotra. So this cheating religion, or the Dharma, which is meant for actually based on Dharma, Artha, Kama, just doing some religion to achieve some wealth, to then attain sense gratification, material sense gratification, and fame and popularity and success and all of these material things. That actually the Srimad Bhagavatam kicks this out in the very, very beginning. It says that this isn't really the Dharma. And actually, Srila Prabhupada explains to us that actually our material enjoyment is already fixed, actually. So people are struggling very hard for material enjoyment, but the material enjoyment of the body is actually already fixed up. It's actually already set, very much set from our previous lifetime. So we can see that if somebody is born, somebody's born here in Australia, it's a very, beautiful, the rain is falling, the trees are growing, it's a nice place to live, you can drive for 20 minutes, it's a beautiful beach and you can swim. And other people are born in a place where nothing grows. It's a complete desert. And it's very, very austere, very hard to even find food for your family. So when one comes into this life, according to the birth that they take, the amount of happiness is very much fixed. It's very much fixed up. So acharyas say, why should we strive so hard for this happiness that's already fixed? Somehow do our karma, we got born in Australia, or we came to Australia, come to this place, or we come to New Zealand or America or Bali or some beautiful place where everything's there, everything's nice, or somehow due to our past karma, we're born in a place that's very struggling, very difficult, somehow or another we just get by. But why to spend the whole life trying to get that much, try to change that happiness that is already set? Is actually Prahlad Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada. All the acharyas are saying this. So this brings up the question then, if everything is destined, what is this idea of destiny? What is a destined karma? If our happiness is destined, then we should just do nothing. Everything's destined. But no, we have to also understand scientifically what is the difference between destiny and karma. And sometimes this question comes up here and there. So destiny is our karma that we already have done. By our karma we create our destiny. The simple example that if we decide to get on a plane and the plane is headed for London, then once we get on that plane and once the plane takes off, we are locked into that. Right? So we are locked in. Our destiny is that we'll be going to London. That's our destiny. But why is that? How did that become our destiny? By our karma, by our decision. We made a conscious decision. I think I want to go to London. We get on the plane. We're going on the plane. So there's nothing we can do. We're on the plane to London. Whatever happens, we'll be in London. Now, of course, this is example of if by our activities, by somebody's activities, they're going to take an animal birth, a very low birth, or birth of a tree in the next lifetime, then they have created that situation. They've created that situation. Now, of course, in that example, once you're on the plane, you can decide. Within that, there's decisions you can make. You can cause a big disturbance such that they complain and they want to, put the staff have to deal with you, or you can be a good passenger, or you can, on a gross level or subtly, you can decide to just watch some, silly movie, or you could sit there and read Bhagavad Gita, you can chant. So when you're on the plane, when you're in this body, there's a certain amount of free will that you have. But that amount of free will is within the bounds of the karma, right? If somebody is born in the body of a dog, then they're not going to be elected on the council of Ulamba, right? There's nothing the dog can do to get elected as the Lord Mayor, right? It's not going to happen. So therefore the acharyas say, why struggle so hard when the basic, and sometimes they say, someone was saying this to me the other day in the restaurant, that people never change, people don't change. People can change, but within a certain level. So if somebody is born, you're born with a certain nature, and you can see it in a Vedic astrology, you can see it in different, and you can see it just by, the activities a person wants to do, then they have to work within that. So we have to work within what we are given. We have a certain body, certain mind. We work within that, right? But to spend the whole life trying to chase after, happiness, that's going to come anyway, is very foolish and a huge waste of time. So here is described that the devotee, the progressive devotee, acts with this consciousness his whole life. And we can see here that the consciousness, that's developed at the end of life is the result of this, of thinking like this, of understanding this and applying this. You can't see this is verse 3, but in verse 4, it says, Samstam Vigyaya Sanyasa. Samsam means death. Vigyaya means being informed. And Sanyasa, renouncing karma fruitive activities, Trivargikam, these three principles, Dharma, Artha and Kama. So, because Parikshit Maharaj, he understood that he was going to die, then he was able to immediately renounce his attachment and his involvement in these material activities. So he, excuse me. So this is by the way he was able to live his life, he was able to do that at the time of death, because he had that in the front of his head. Krishna says, what is that verse? Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha dosh anudarshanam. Anudarshanam means like keep in the front of your mind. Anudarshanam, like almost seeing. You're almost seeing it. You're always seeing it. You're always keeping that in the front of your mind. That there's birth, death, old age, disease. These things are there, and the devotee lives his life with the knowledge of that. So not that the devotee is very morbid, like a goth or something. We're all going to die. Not like that, but lives a very joyous life in the spiritual activities. But then understands that any of these activities of Dharma, Artha, Kama, the economic development, the sense gratification, the religious activities of regulated activities that create all those things, all of these, any time can be taken away. Any time can be taken away. And we see that. We see that in our society. Some people are quite young. And then suddenly, 6 months later, left the body. It can happen at any time. Any time. So for us a devotee lives his life in such a way that at any time when that knock comes, or it's time to leave your body, he can say, okay, Dharma, Artha, Kama, give that up. Give that up and just completely give the heart to Krishna, completely. So Srila Prabhupada explains about this verse, about this whole idea of dharma to come moksha, that dharma actually sometimes described as like a religion. Dharma is a word for your religion. What's your dharma? My dharma, your religion. But actually dharma means something you cannot change. It's actually the essential nature of a thing. Like the dharma of sugar is sweet. You know, the dharma of salt is to be salty. That you cannot change that without changing the thing itself. So the dharma of the person, the human being, of the soul, actually himself, Jivara Srupahoy Krishnara Nityadas, is given in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The dharma of the soul is to be an eternal servant of Krishna, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jivara Srupahoy Krishnara Nityadas. Nitya Das. This is the nature of the soul. And also in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the very first canto, in the second chapter, which is an incredible summary of the whole of Bhagavatam. The second chapter of first canto is just like the cream of the cream of the cream. Everything is given there. And you find, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, and the first chapter of the first canto was setting the scene and talking about who everybody is, and then talking the questions and this and that, and then Sutta Goswami says the sages, Shauna Grishi gives the questions and everything, and then finally Sutta Goswami starts to actually answer these questions according to the conversation he's heard from Shukadeva Goswami. But the very first verse where he actually starts to answer this question, again, is in a nutshell, is this point of Dharma Prajadikadva, of that Bhagavatam is telling us what is the real Dharma, what is the eternal Dharma. And that verse says, many of you know, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharmo Yato Bhakti Adhokshade. Right? Ahaituki apratiyata Yayat Masu Prasidati. Make you very happy, make you very joyous if you keep doing it. This Paro Dharma. So the Para Dharma, the superior Dharma of the living entity, Savai Pumsam Paro Dharma Yato Bhakti Yoga. This is the superior Dharma of the living entity, and it's actually the inherent nature, the ultimate inherent nature. So we might have different levels of Dharma. We may have duties and activities and religions to do with our group, our family, our gender, our political grouping, our pastimes. We may activities. We may be in different clubs, or all of these kind of things are all external designations of parties. Right? So the real Dharma, going underneath all of that, is the service to the Lord. And Srila Prabhupada explains that everybody is actually serving. We can see in the world that even externally, in the external world, everybody is serving. And this is actually the one thing that unites everybody. The one thing that unites everybody, all human beings, is that they serve. Somehow or another, they serve somebody. Somebody's serving the country, their society, somebody's serving their family, serving their children, serving their parents. But everybody's serving something. But everybody is not happy in the service. Sometimes when, we know when we come to Bhakti Yoga and we hear our duty is, our ultimate position is being a servant of the Lord. Then sometimes it comes in the mind, some people explicitly say, why be a servant? I don't want to serve anybody. I've served so many people in this material world and I've always been disappointed. So there's so much disappointment by serving others, by trying to make others happy, that sometimes we feel like, we give up. It's not worth it. So that is because we're serving Maya, right? We're serving illusion. We can see that these things are temporary, social, national, even human level. All of these things where we're serving in the name of something external, that is ultimately is a temporary thing. It doesn't have any real substance. You know, we might get very, very fired up when we're young about a certain political cause, and we serve, and then we get to, you know, a bit older and we think, oh, that's not that important actually, you know. Someone recently, a very famous TV personality, one of the most famous in the world, was a vegan for 8-10 years or something, and then recently decided, nah, don't want to do that anymore. I just feel like, you know, it's not for me. Just change the whole. They put so much energy into serving the cause of veganism, serving, and then no, just change. So like this, everything, whatever we serve, whatever we take up the flag of in this material world, it's a temporary thing. It's Maya. It's illusion. It has some existence, but it's not eternal. But the service to Krishna that we develop, that is eternal, and therefore it can actually make us happy. And Srila Prabhupada explains that in the spiritual world, both not only the servant is happy, the master is happy. In this material world, neither the master is happy or the servant is happy. The employers are always complaining, I can't get good help nowadays, and the employees are all complaining, I don't get paid enough, I do so much. But nobody's happy serving somebody else in the temporary designation of this world. The example is given. The example is given that if we put food in the stomach, then the whole body becomes satisfied. If we pour water on the tree, all the leaves of the tree are satisfied. So like that, the Lord is the root. Krishna is the root of existence. And by pouring our devotion and our service into the very source of all existence, we become very, very satisfied. We get a feeling, a satisfaction that is completely beyond anything that we can achieve by serving something or some cause in the material world. You know? So this is the again in the verse 4, samstam vigyaya sanyasya, that because he heard that he was going to die, and he was vigyaya, he was informed, he was intelligent, Maharaj Parikshit could understand this is the time. We might have heard that example. There's a story of in the Bhagavatam of Maharaj Katvanga, who was a very great king, and he'd gone to help the demigods in some battle and universal affairs. And after he'd helped them, the demigods, who are very universal controllers and have way more intelligence than our very meager human intelligence. They are very, very super intelligent, beyond our conception. We can't even intellectually conceive of how intelligent devas are, demigods are. And so he said, well, he was very intelligent, and they said, what do you want as a boon? And he said, well, probably first thing I need to know before I start thinking about, building a great kingdom and everything else, dharma, artha, karma. First thing is, when am I going to die? And they said, well, that's a very intelligent question, because actually we can see that you have about 1 muhurta of your life left, which is about, it's about 30 minutes, something like that. So he said, well, that changes my perspective on things. And in the same way Parikshit Maharaj did, he said, all right, so just please then, my benediction I ask is just take me to my temple, take me to my deities, and let me leave my body there, chanting Hare Krishna in front of the deities, and totally give my heart to Krishna, and give up all of these material activities. Yeah. So the thing, everything that we do, as we said before, Krishna is saying, ahara nidra maituni maya. Krishna is saying, janma mrityu jara vyadi, dukkha doshana darshanam. Keep that in the front of the mind. But if we don't keep this, if someone doesn't have this outlook in life, they become very much involved in ahara nidra maituni bhaya. This is eating, sleeping, mating, and and defense, fearing, trying to protect themselves. So these four things are common to the animals, common to humans. But what is not known by people in general is that all of these things actually have their perfection in the Supreme Lord, in the spiritual world. In Vedanta Sutra and also in the beginning of Bhagavatam, this verse is used, Janmadhyasya yataha. Everything is coming from there, from that Supreme. So everyone has the desire to eat nice things, to have friends, eating, sleeping, have relationships, to make some place where they can protect themselves, be safe. All of those things, everybody's trying for those things, right? But the Vedas, and especially the Bhakti scriptures given by Lord Chaitanya, they explain that all of these things are actually coming from the spiritual world. Just like Mother Yashoda, we were just saying, Yashoda Nandana, she has affection for her son, Krishna, and that is in a perfect, intensely beautiful, eternal form. Whereas the affection that a mother has for the child here has various inebrities. Even if it's perfect from a material point of view, it will end. So this is, when we have this understanding, the devotee has the understanding and gradually cultivates this understanding that, yes, I have that desire to want to have these interactions in life, but actually that is because it's coming from the Supreme. So we have to, as Prabhupada said, we have to mold our life in such a way that we can always remember Krishna. And the devotees, they use these relationships like eating. They're going to eat, but they'll cook something nice and offer it to Krishna. So the eating is there, the eating exists, but it's spiritualized because it's connected, offered to Krishna. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevana. That, actually, I was thinking the other verse. What is it? Anasa tasya vishan yataham upayunjata nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam varagyam uchate. So the devotee understands that there is a supreme source of all these relationships, but there's a class of religionists and transcendentalists called impersonalists that don't accept that. They don't understand this. They don't accept that, and therefore they think all of these interactions of the material world are illusory and we just have to give them all up. This is Mayavadi, carrying a material idea to a spiritual idea. Because they don't have understanding that there is spiritual relationship with Krishna, as being described here, Prichami Sattama Krishna Anubhava, that Pariksit Maharaj, he actually had a very loving relationship with Krishna in a pure spiritual love, beyond material attachment, beyond material affection and mental situation. But the Mayavadis don't accept this, and so they renounce all spiritual activities. But the devotee, he renounces the ownership of these activities. He doesn't renounce the activities themselves. He says, I can connect these activities to Krishna. I can take some food stuff, I can offer it to Krishna in devotion, and then I can accept that, what Krishna has given. Krishna says, Kamani evadikaras te ma palashu kadachana. So, just like a bank employee, he uses the money, takes the money and gives it to the bank. He doesn't say, no, I don't touch the money. I don't touch the money. What if the bank teller, you go to give the money and they said, oh, I don't touch the money. I can't, you know, that's not proper. And what if the bank employee is taking the money and putting a little bit aside for themselves? That's also criminal, right? So on the one he's saying, I renounce it. Another one is saying, oh, I want to enjoy it. So this is karma and gyan. The same thing. But the real good employee, he's taking the money, writes the receipt, and puts the money in the bank vault, right? So this is the devotee, he and they can interact with the world. They can do these duties of dharma, artha, karma, moksha. Like these activities are going on. And actually, Srimad Bhagavatam seed shloka, the last one, says that the devotee needs to worship Krishna directly and indirectly. So the indirect has to be there. The varna ashram, these kind of things, according to one's situation, according to one's ashram, according to one's varna, the duties are different, but internally the same thing is going on. The one is doing whatever the thing is as a duty, is doing it as a duty. And if someone, for example, if someone is when Lord Chaitanya came to the Kurma Brahmana, and he said, I want to renounce my duty, my wife and children, and just go and be with you, be like sannyasi, then Lord Chaitanya said, he covered his ears, he said, don't talk like this. He said, that's your duty, you've accepted that duty as a householder, do that duty. Right? And some other persons, their duty as a sannyasi, is a renunciate, then Lord Chaitanya took them. He knew, he understood what the person's duty was. But whatever the duty is somewhat unimportant in a sense, but how they are using that to serve Krishna. Using that to serve Krishna. Parikshit Maharaj, he was a great king, so he had palaces, he had horses, he had chariots, he had to fight battles, so many things. But all of it was, his whole life he was thinking about Krishna, and his whole life he was thinking, when that day comes, I have to give up my life, I'll fully surrender to Krishna. Right? So that's the thing, the devotee lives a life in such a way that whatever situation that it doesn't really matter. Really doesn't matter. Unless obviously we have to very carefully avoid the sinful activities, things that are sinful, that degrade the consciousness, definitely has to be there. But if one is living a pious life, whether man, woman, Australian, American, Indian, whether business person or very religious, like a Brahmin teacher, it doesn't matter. What matters is developing that Krishna consciousness. And this is the thing, to develop this Atma Bhavam. Again, the fourth verse, the last line is Atma Bhavam Dridam. He achieved that sense, Parikshit Maharaj, attraction, that very loving attraction. Prabhupada says that Atma Bhavam is like a dear relative. Krishna was like a dear relative, becomes like the most dear, intimate friend. And that's the, Bhagavatam also, I think the second canto says that verse, Ante Narayana Smriti, what is it? Janmalabha Parapumsam, is that verse? That whatever you do in life, whatever the yoga, whatever the process is, the perfection is to, at the end of life, to be able to give up all of those things. Right? So we might use all those things during life according to our situation, but like Krishna consciousness means to change our consciousness, as Prabhupada says, to change our consciousness from making this material world as the beloved to make Krishna the beloved. So we're dealing with the material world according to our own duties, according to our own situation, but we're trying to transfer our love to Krishna. Therefore we're doing that for Krishna however we can. And this is how stage which is attained by Parikshit Maharaj. And because he'd attained this stage of Atma Bhava, of pure love for Krishna, therefore he was very easily could give up his kingdom, family and palaces and just simply become Krishna conscious. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Maybe 1-2 minutes.
Yeah, actually I have a question.
Yes,
Do you
Manji.
have time for question?
Yeah, we just have a couple of minutes, I think.
So my question is with...
Just if you wait 1 sec, I think Prabhu wants to give a microphone. Then people on the radio and the internet can hear better.
Okay, is this streamed on YouTube as well?
Yeah. It's not live stream, but later it'll come.
Later.
Yeah, on New Govardhana website. New Govardhana YouTube channel.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Thank you for that very salient class. It was very practical. There was a lot of practical application, so thank you very much. I think my question is related to dealing with the world. So when you have come to a point where I wouldn't say we've achieved perfection in Krishna consciousness, but fairly fixed in Krishna consciousness, we've understood the truth and the ultimate goal. But then comes, we are in the world and dealing with the world. So again, we know certain principles related to that, but when it comes to close family and friends, and even things like colleagues.
Who are not necessarily devotees, who are not necessarily bhakti yogis. Yeah.
So then dealing with them, Prabhu, what happens is, on one hand, we are supposed to be compassionate as devotees, tolerant, compassionate, and we're supposed to give them Krishna consciousness if possible, if they're receptive. But if they are not, and they're caught up in their own web, and they're nice people, and they want our time, attention, or for whatever reasons, we have to, let's say they're colleagues, and we have to give them some time and attention, but it creates, there's a bit of disturbance or inertia, because you are not really in that space, So how do we balance that, Prabhuji?
Well, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, yes, a very good question, and this is really the essence of, especially for householders, but for all ashrams, but I mean, obviously brahmacharis, they're going out on the street and distributing books, the same thing is, how do I engage these people? How do I kind of have something in common with them without becoming, involved? And Prabhupada gave the, that example of like fishing, fishing without getting wet. But Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I think a lot of this question comes down to really understanding what is association. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he talks about this a bit, and he says that when you go on the boat across, in India, you pay and you go on the boat across, or in Mayapur especially, you go across the Ganga. He says when you go and get the ticket, and he say 50 paisa. And you get the ticket, and then when you give the ticket to the boatman and you go across, he said that's not really association. So association means to reveal the mind to somebody. So when we're associating with people like that, especially work colleagues, they're like people on the boat with us. So this boat is our workplace. We have to have a job, we have to have a work. So we're on that boat of the work, right? And they're the boatman or they're the whatever. But that's not really association. And therefore, if we understand, the science of association means revealing your mind to someone. There's 6 exchanges of love. Acquiring confidential and revealing the mind. So when we're associating with people like that, we associate on that level. And that's okay. We can't, and we see from, there's millions of examples from Prabhupada's life, but one that comes to mind was on the video, they were saying how Prabhupada was in a house somewhere in America in the early days, and he was next door to another house, and there was an old man in that house. And he came out, and the old man was there in the garden. He said, "Oh, how are you? Oh, good. You still have your teeth?" "I have my teeth too." "Oh, very good. Yeah, wonderful. All right, have a great day." And that was the association. I'm sure Krishna Ridmanji can give us some examples of that. But anyway, this is the thing, to understand how we're associating with people. Because if we understand, okay, this person is a colleague, they're not necessarily going to change and become devotees all of a sudden because of that, but I can give them prasadam. I can give them some prasad. And we have a restaurant there, so the last 3 years of running a restaurant is like, oh my God, just given me so much understanding of this, of just wherever someone's at, you give them that. And there's people who I can give Prabhupada's books to, and they take a donation, they take Prabhupada's books. There's other people who come and then they want to have a whole philosophical discussion about it, and there's other people who are just like, yeah, it's pretty good, there's Hari food, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, yeah, great, take the food. So if we are a bit intelligent about where that person is, and we are very careful of how we associate, if we reveal our mind to someone, then suddenly they, can bring all of their material ideas and material conceptions, and they're taking shelter of so many materialistic ideas which are temporary, And then they bring that to us and try to fit us into there, and
Correct.
it becomes a big kitchery, and not a very nice kitchery, you know. Yeah, so I think if we understand, and it's okay to associate with different people in different ways. We have someone we play tennis with, for example, or we just play tennis. And we go there, play tennis. If we need some exercise, I'm just giving a total random example.
No,
But we don't have to go to the full Sarvadam and Parijaja with everyone in the world. But at the same time, we see from Prabhupada's life, you know, in the middle of a war in 1944, he started Back to Godhead magazine, and he was going distributing that and talking to people. So always the idea that Krishna consciousness is the only solution, and we should try to give that to whoever we can, however we can. But if we have that, I have to say my guru in this regard, if a Shiksha guru in that regard, is His Holiness Bhaktivedanta Purna Swami, who I've been hearing from so many years, and he says, basically, you just take whatever the good, and the rest you just leave. And when I got that with my own parents, you talked about family, it revolutionized my life.
Okay.
Because my mother wants to love me. My mother wants to have a loving relationship with me. But she eats meat and drinks a bit, not much, not drinking, but she's an Australian person who eats meat. So I'm like, okay, the love I accept. And the meat eating, I don't accept. I say, no, we don't do that. And after 25 years, she's got it. Whenever there's a family gathering, it's always vegetarian food. Usually we're cooking burgers and whatever. Everything's fine, and I can accept that love. I get the blessings of the pitris of the person, you know. And I just leave it behind. I never get into philosophy with my mother. Why would I? Because I know what her philosophy is.
But what happens is, Prabhuji, we notice that now when people realize we're spiritual, so we do our duty like that. We sit around and meet different people for different reasons.
Yeah.
But people, once they know we are spiritual and we are on a spiritual path, we don't try to force feed them with anything or even preach. We're quiet and go with the flow. But people draw us into debates and forums, and they try and disturb us, you know. That is the reverse.
Yeah, I mean, that's okay. If they want to debate, you can debate with them.
You know?
Yeah, But it's an ongoing thing.
Yes, but beautiful answer. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Okay. All right, we've gone a bit over time, so we'll finish there. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.